Okay, picking up where we left off on page 607, and we're talking about the types of data. Nominal data is just made-up numbers that are associated with data. Okay, and their actual values are not relevant as long as you're consistent. Ordinal data. Ordinal data means I kind of sort of know which one is first, which one is second. Or how about this? I know that this is larger than that, and that is larger than this, but I don't know what their sizes are. All I know is one is bigger than the other, and I might be able to tell by how much, but I really don't know how big they are. So all I have is ordinal data. I know like what order if they were sorted, what order they would appear, but what the actual values are, don't know. Interval data is kind of sort of similar. It's like I know the distance between the 2 points. So for example, if I had a range of dates, and you said, okay, well, not a range of dates. Let's say takes 15 days to do this step and takes 10 days to do this step. You say, well, what's the date there? Well, I don't know the date there. All I know is the difference between this one and this one is 15 days. And the difference between this date and that date is 10 days. I mean, I don't know what the dates are, but I can tell you what the interval is in between. Okay, cool? And ratio data. Ratio data is kind of sort of like that ordinal stuff. It's like a kumquat is 5 times more popular than an orange. How popular is oranges? I don't know. How popular is, kumquats? I don't know. All I know is this one is 5 times as much as that one. So I have a ratio. Okay, so one is I have a sign value. Nominal means I just made up a number. Ordinal means I know what order they go in, but I don't really know what the values are. Interval is I know what the spacing in between is, but I don't necessarily know what the values are. And ratios are I know this one is twice as big as that one, but I really don't know how big it is. Okay, cool. And you can have combinations of those things, by the way. I mean, it's still ratio data if you do know the size, for example. I'm not saying that ratio data is only when you don't know the size. That's kind of dumb. Okay, so the first thing I talk about is using the random number generator. So page 608. Here is a grade book. Now this is a completely fake grade book. I'm going to go down here at the bottom someplace, and I want to do a random number. So I'm just going to go here and just find me a blank spot, and I'm just going to type rand. Now rand doesn't take any parameters at all, but it still requires a opening, closing parentheses. Remember that? And so I go, well, damn, what the heck is that? Well, random just returns a decimal value between 1 and 0. That's all it does, okay? Now, how often is that all going to be very useful? Not. There's another one that's a little bit more civilized, and it's called rand between. So rand between basically says, what do you want the range to be? Well, I want to go from 1 to 12. Okay, now that's a heck of a lot better. Okay. Now here is a goofy made up. Well, this is basically the score sheets for the students. I grabbed these names off of a website that generates random names, and look what I did here for the username. I got the first 2 letters of their name. I threw in a 0, and then I told them a random number. The last digit is a random number between 1 and 9. Okay, the student ID, I said, well, I want to start out with W0. Give me another 2 digits, and then give me a whole bunch of digits. And then, unfortunately, if I did that, then some of them will be 7 characters long, some of them will be 8 characters long. So I just threw in some extra zeros on the end there, and then truncated it to 9. This is the date range. I just picked some numbers, and this is a rand between 44 and 100. So all these things are random. Now I will tell you something that's kind of interesting is whenever you make a change. Okay, I want you to watch, for example, this little row right here, right? Okay, if I go in here and make a change to something, like I don't know, that minus 7. Did you notice that this changed? And that, and that, and that? That's because random, or rand between, is live, so to speak. Whenever you make a change to the data, or the spreadsheet rather, whenever you make a change to the spreadsheet, it redoes the randomness. Now, sometimes that's okay. I will tell you that if you're trying to produce some random data that you can play with, then maybe you ought not do that. So instead of making like this student ID always random, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go grab this guy, and to make it quit being live data, you know, because once it's random, you're okay. I'm just going to do a copy and then turn right around and do a paste right on top of it, except this time I'm going to do one of those pastes. You know, you can paste what's called paste values, okay? And what that basically means is it is random text, but it's no longer live random text, okay? So the whole thing though about random produces a decimal number, random between is a little bit more civilized, and both of these guys are live. And if you don't want them to be live, then copy and paste values, and that'll make it shut up, okay? All right, so in the book they talk about I want to make a random sampling of students, for example. And I just want to pick some of the, I want to take 10, there's 50 in this list. I want to take 10 of these. Well, one quick way to pull a random sample is just go over here and grab you an extra column, okay? And this is probably one of the few places where just plain old rand will do, okay? I'm just going to grab this and go all the way down. Okay, so all I've done is just assign some random numbers. Let me go ahead and just throw in some decimal points so you can see what that's actually there. Okay, cool. And this is just junk. I mean, there's no real. I'm probably not going to leave this column in here. Okay, it's just on there for the time being. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select that and I'm going to sort by this column. Okay, so I've created an extra column. I call it junk. Filled it with random data, and I want to sort by this. And then, of course, would you like me to expand to include the whole thing? You bet your ass I do. Okay. Now I have, everything was random before, and so now if I want to grab 5 of these guys, I just go grab 5 of them. Or 10. How many did I say? Who cares? I guess 10. So here's the 10. Let's grab these 10 folks. Okay, so here's the 10 folks. Yay! And so copy. And so I don't know what I'm doing. Someplace down here, I've got my my 10 students that are randomly selected. Do you see what I did? I added a column, perhaps temporarily, sorted on that column, selected the top whatever, top 10, and now I can go back and resort that column and get rid of the extra thing, put everything back the way it was, because I essentially have selected a random sampling. Okay, so that's how that's done. Cool. On page 610, they talk about this whole concept called the central tendency. And these are terms that you've probably heard of. One of the things that we talk about a lot is average. Now, just to make this thing not go, I'm going to freeze this column, so to speak, because it's random now. It's got some random data in it. So I'm going to do like I did before. I'm going to say copy, and then just paste back on top of it with paste values. Okay, because I don't want this to change as I'm playing with it. Okay, so here we go. So I want to know what is the average. So the average actually has a different name. The average is the mean, okay? Now we don't, sometimes we call it the mean, sometimes we don't. But average would be this guy. Okay, so the average is 72.7. Okay, cool. Now the next one is the median. Now the median, remember we talked about like median household price? The median is going to be the middle of the range. Okay? In other words, from the whatever the lowest one is and whatever the highest one is going to be the one in the middle. Okay? So we're going to do that. So if I do median and grab that same range again. Ding. And since this was, by the way, since this is truly random data, I would expect my mean, median, and mode to be all about the same. In fact, if it didn't, I would say, aha, there's something wrong with your random number generator. Okay. The next one is the mode. And the mode actually has 2 different operating procedures. We've heard this before. There's one for doing single points, which is typically what we want, and there's one for doing multiples. So I'm going to do mode, and I'm going to use the single version because the married version doesn't work. No, that's not what that means. And I'm going to grab this. Now, unfortunately, this is a little weird because whenever you have lots and lots of data like this, yeah, I'll make that a %. Okay. So now we have mean or average, median, and mode. Those three things. So all you really need to know is which one is the traditional average? Well, that would be the mean. Which one is the one that's in the middle? That would be the median. Which one is the one that shows up the most? And by the way, whenever you do shows up the most, typically you don't do it like this. Typically you put things in categories like, you know, a little bucket, so to speak, and we'll be doing that in a minute. In other words, if I was to have sales price and I wanted to know what the mode for a sales price of a house, you know, what is the likelihood that I would have any house where the sales price was absolutely the same? It'd be pretty low, wouldn't it? But if I rounded it off to the even thousand, okay, then now you're planning on getting some hits, huh? So most of the time these things are rounded off or somehow made a little bit more, I don't know. So rounding off to the digits might have been a better idea than just doing it the way I did it. But hey, it works. So what I want you to know is what's the difference between the mean, mode, and median. Okay, cool. So let's keep going. Let's just do one called min, because I want to know what the minimum one is. Well, that would be min. Whoa, behave. And let's just grab these guys again. Ding. Okay, cool. I want to know the max. So that would be this guy. Ding. Okay, so the max, the min. So now I want to know what the range is. Now, you might think there'd be something in here called range, but it's not there. And the reason is, well, it's just too dang simple, right? It's just the max minus the min. I mean, there's nothing fancy here at all, okay? So I've got a lot of things going here. There's a couple more things I'm going to do, and then we'll kind of stop. The next one is called the variance. Variance is all about how dispersed is it data. Is the data a really tight grouping on the bullseye, or is it a shotgun blast on the bullseye? So variance tells me how tight or how loose. How's that for an example? How dispersed the thing is. And there's two different types of variances. One is designed for doing the sample population, and the other one is trying to do the big population. We're always going to be using the sample one. Okay. So this would be var, but I don't want the P version. I want the S version. Okay, and it'll always be the S version, so you don't have to think much. So let's just grab this and go. And after that, let's take a look at this number. Okay. So, actually, I guess I should put that into a % so it makes a little bit more sense. So the variance is very kind of, it's an interesting number. And to evaluate this, you kind of need to know a little bit about the data. The variance of 0.16 means this is pretty well dispersed data. It's not a really tight grouping, and it's not a shotgun blast. It's kind of something in between. And I won't go into details of telling you how that occurs, because there's another technique which is a little bit better at that. Okay, and that one is doing the standard deviation. So variance is great, okay? But variance requires that you stop and look at the data to interpret what the number is. And I don't like that. I want a unit of measure that I could use in this data set and this data set and doing a comparison. And variance ain't it. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.